Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the second tutorial in this FBIS training series. In the first tutorial, we did an overview of the different components of the FBIS platform. We had a look at the landing page, and we went through all of the different options on the menu bar here at the top of the map interface. And in this session, we're going to be focusing on filtering biodiversity data in the platform. And that is done by using the sort of magnifying glass icon there. So hitting that opens the filtering options for filtering subsets of the biodiversity data. And this is where a lot of the power of the platform is found. So you can see there's a range of different ways that the data can be filtered. And I'm going to, in this session, walk you through those different options. So at the top, you can see the first option is biodiversity module. And what this means is you can filter or query a subset of the data based on the biodiversity module that you're interested in. For example, if you're interested in fish data only, you would just click the fish icon, which then you can see it becomes selected, it turns dark gray, and just hit the apply button. And that immediately filters the data on the platform by freshwater fish only. And it gives you straight up over here a little breakdown of the number of records, about 45,000, the number of sites, about 10,000, and the number of taxa, 129, for freshwater fish data available on FBIS. And if you then wanted to drill down deeper into the biodiversity data selection, you would hit the Sites Overview button, which would take you to a little breakdown of those data in terms of key data attributes, such as origin, endemism, and conservation status, and an option to drill down deeper into a more detailed dashboard. But more on that in another tutorial. So if we close this search result and head back to our filter bar here, we can then look at the next option, which is the abiotic module. And the abiotic module allows you to filter for different abiotic data sets available on the FBIS platform. And at this point, we have two main different kinds of abiotic data sets. Those are water temperature data and physicochemistry data. The water temperature time series data are typically data sets that have been collected where temperature loggers have been installed in freshwater ecosystems in South Africa and have logged temperature data over time. And this is a really useful tool for looking at climate change analyses in freshwater ecosystems. The next option is to filter by data that have physicochemical data. And let me just explain that in a little bit more detail. So very often when biodiversity data are collected, certain physicochemical parameters are measured at the same time. Some of the more common ones would be dissolved oxygen or pH or conductivity. And by activating this button and hitting apply, that tells the platform that you're only interested in biodiversity data records for which there are companion physicochemical information and data for those records. So there are also a lot of records on the platform that don't have any of that physicochemical data associated with them. All right, next up is the data sources tab. And at this point, we have three main kinds of data sources that we distinguish between on the FBIS platform. We have FBIS data, GBIF data, and virtual museum data. The default is that all three of these are activated. So what you're seeing on the map is data from all three of these different sources. And you can find out what the different sources mean by clicking the little information button next to the data source. And in the case of FBIS, you can see that what does FBIS data, what do FBIS data mean? Though these are data not available via GBIF that have been sourced and collected from reputable databases, peer-reviewed scientific articles, published reports, theses, and other unpublished data sources. And GBIF are data from the Global Biodiversity Information Facility for freshwater taxa that are known to occur in South Africa. And virtual museum data are largely citizen science data sets that have been collected and curated initially by the Animal Demography Unit at the University of Cape Town. And it's a really rich data source of citizen science data in South Africa. All right. Validation status is the next option by which a user can filter the data. And this really just allows you to have a little bit of control over the quality of the data that are returned in your searches. So if one wanted to restrict the search to only the highest quality data, you could check validated. So these are data that have been validated by experts. And similarly, you could also just check unvalidated data only. So these are data that have not yet been validated. And then with regards to SAS data, which is the South African scoring system, a biomonitoring tool that uses macroinvertebrates to estimate the ecological condition of river ecosystems in South Africa. Those records can be filtered by whether or not the practitioner who collected the sample was SAS accredited or not SAS accredited at the time. And each time a selection is made, one can just hit the apply button to return the results for that query and those filter options. All right, next up are the temporal filtering options. And there's quite a lot of power in this tab where the user is able to filter based on a scale of years or months. So using this year slider, you can really hone in on the time period. For example, I may be interested in data between the years of 1925 and 1950, and then I may only be interested in those data for the months of January, February, and March for those years. Hitting apply will return that temporal slice of the data available on FBIS. And then we have a range of different spatial filtering options. Most of these are management and conservation layers that are generally quite useful for biodiversity data searches. And just to walk you through some of these, we have geomorphological zone, where the user can specify everything from the lower foothill zone right up to the transitional zone. We have freshwater ecoregions of the world, which is a global layer that can be used to distinguish data from different freshwater ecoregions. For example, the Cape Fold ecoregion. And that's an example of a layer, because the freshwater ecoregions of the world is also a layer available on FBIS, but in this case, it can also be used to filter data. And remember that not all layers are filters, but all filters are generally available as visualization layers as well. All right. Next up is the ability to filter by provincial attributes. And this includes the different neighboring countries to South Africa, for example, Botswana or Zimbabwe or Mozambique, but it also includes the provinces within South Africa, for example, the Eastern Cape or the Free State. So these are really your political boundaries and neighboring country filter options in this tab over here. Then you can filter by different management area selections. So starting off, you can filter by your data by water management area. And each time hitting this little plus button expands to the different options. So for South Africa, we have these 19 different water management areas that can be used to select a subset of the data. And we have sub-water management areas and drilling down deeper river management areas as well. You can filter by catchments at different scales, ranging from primary catchment at the broadest scale right the way down through to quinary catchment area. And if you know your specific quinary catchment code, this is a really nice way to access the biodiversity or abiotic data for that catchment. Then South African ecoregions, the next one. There are two levels of the South African ecoregion that are available for filtering on the FBIS. Level 1, which is broader, and then level 2 as well. We have critical biodiversity area layers for filtering at both a national and a provincial layer, very important and commonly used conservation layer. And this is further subdivided into CBAs, the critical biodiversity areas themselves, as well as the national ecological support areas. And also found within this tab are the national protected areas, layers and filtering options as well. At the provincial level, similarly, you can filter for the CBAs, the critical biodiversity layers for each province in South Africa. Then the National Freshwater Ecosystem Priority Area, then FEPA layers, are packaged within this tab. And this is a very commonly used management and conservation tool in South Africa. And the different options relating to rivers and fish when it comes to FEPAs are available here. And once again, if you wanted to look at all the options available for the fish sanctuaries from 2011, you can drill down to select fish corridors, fish FEPAs, etc. Okay, next up are the water source areas, split by surface and groundwater source areas. Again, an example of a layer that is also available as a filter. And if you wanted to look at, let's say, the surface water area, water source area of Table Mountain, you would select that and hit apply. And then just to remind you that what happens straight away is the data queried with your filter are returned, and you generally will see a red outline which shows you the boundary of your filter selection on the FBIS map as well. Right. Again, I'm going to reset my filtering using this little reset arrow here at the top of the search bar and zoom out again. So getting towards the bottom of the list of spatial filters, we have the National Biodiversity Assessment layers, which includes the different PES layers, present ecological state and river condition. We have hydrological regions, which can also be filtered in general or by flow type for a more detailed hydrological region filtering. And then finally, the last spatial layer is thermal framework, which again can be drilled in by the different categories of thermal framework, system resilience, and model accuracy. All right. More on this, more on the thermal data details in an upcoming session. So moving to the bottom now of the search bar, you can see there are a few other non-spatial filtering options, but these are really useful options that we find and among the most used. So importantly, you can filter the data sets on FBIS by ecological category. So this is the condition of the river at a site, ranging from natural to critically or seriously modified. In terms of SAS data available on FBIS, biomonitoring data, collected for South Africa to estimate the health of river ecosystems. So you could select only sites that are and have a SAS result of critically modified by activating that button and hitting apply. Then onto origin and endemism. This really gives the user the options to filter by non-native or native species. And within native, you can filter the native species either for all native species, or you can use the different endemism categories to filter your data by. And hovering over these endemism categories gives a brief definition of what they mean. In the finest scale, these microendemic level 2 would be taxa that are unique to a single river or a wetland, right the way through to widespread, which occurs throughout Southern Africa and beyond. All right. Next up, we have global conservation status. So this gives the user an option to filter by IUCN conservation status categories, right the way from the most endangered, critically endangered, through to near threatened, and all the other different categories. And then moving on to reference filtering and searching. So you can search for data using reference category as a distinction. So if you hit database and apply, that will return only data that have been cataloged as database. Or you could select peer-reviewed scientific articles, in which case you'd get only data on the FBIS that have been uploaded from scientific articles. Similarly, you may be interested in data from published reports or theses, or unpublished data as well. And then you can also search for data based on a specific study reference. For example, I type in my name, you can see that some of the references associated with my name appear, and selecting one of those and hitting apply will filter for those data associated with that study reference. Right, you can also filter by owner. So again, if I type in my name, I could filter for all the data that are cataloged under the ownership of my name. And finally, we have a decision support tool flagger. And this is a tab that's used to filter data that have been previously used in a decision support tool. For example, the Department of Fisheries, Forestry and the Environment screening tool, whereby freshwater fish data from the FBIS platform were used to inform sensitivity layers for this decision support tool. And this tab enables one to apply a search for all the data that were, in that case, verified by fish experts in South Africa and were used in that particular decision support tool. And more decision support tools will be added to this tab as FBIS data get used to in those tools in the future. So that's it for now. And that's the end of session 2, and look forward to seeing you again in session 3, which is going to be focusing on the layers and some of the functionality and nuances available in the layer tab. Thanks very much, and see you next time.